Hello and welcome to another Utopia Planitia. Oh my goodness, we heard something there buzzing by. Okay,
Sorry about that.
that's okay. That's from our guest, CaptHandsomeJack. Say hi, Jack.
Hi, everybody.
And Jack is our guest. We'll talk about why Jack is our guest in just a moment. But first, let's meet the rest of the panel. I, of course, am Teacher Kirby. And then we have Ain. Say hi, Ain.
Hi, Ed.
Ed's not here right now. Ed is MIA. We don't know what's happened to Ed, but he'll probably show up later.
What do you mean we don't know where he is? He's locked in my basement. We discussed this.
Whoa.
Shh, we weren't gonna tell them. And then we have, of course, saying whoa, just Steve.
Good morning, everyone. You know, Ed's probably going to be late for his own funeral. I'm just saying.
He will be, yeah.
Probably, just a little. Yeah. Okay, so we have CaptHandsomeJack with us. If you're looking at my screen, you're seeing or looking at your screen, you're seeing the official DPS League chart for the DPSM or DPS Mark Foundry mission. This is a way to test your solo with nobody else around DPS and gain entrance to the DPS 100,000 channel. And if you look here, highlighted at number 1 is our guest, CaptHandsomeJack. So that is why he is on. We're going to discuss his build and strategies for how he made his current top of the chart record for DPS Mark.
Great.
So, yep, and he's raring to go. Okay, so first of all, any of you guys have any questions so far?
I have no questions because, like I just said a few moments ago, I run Jack's complete build. Exact,
Awesome.
to the point.
Great.
It's a good build.
That's awesome, yeah.
It's a great build. I love it.
Glad you like it.
I just like the fact that it's a top of the chart run that isn't nannied. So,
Yes, very, very true.
That's what I really
Alright.
like about the Foundry mission.
Do you note the lack of coalition disruptors?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we can talk about that. I've pretty much got the same score with a whole bunch of different beams there, but I really do like those anti-protons the best for DPSM.
Okay. And why is that?
Those are damage 3 pens. Frank is the only set of beams that I have with those sort of mods on it. But being a solo run, I'm just trying to amp up as much damage as I can that I'm going to lose from not running with a team.
Okay. But as you've said, you've gotten similar scores with a number of different beams.
Yes,
So-
yeah. Disruptor beams, coalition disruptor beams as well. It eventually becomes a case of how the map's laid out and what kind of strategy you do to get to the end. It's going to determine how those beams work. Yeah.
So basically it comes down to piloting over using a specific energy type.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
And then so
Yeah,
you've
yeah.
got here the full Iconian set that's pretty standard for DPS.
Yes.
Yeah, because it gives a nice boost and the clicky that you can choose to click when you need it the most.
Yeah. And its speed, it's also a pretty defensive set as well. I don't think that gets enough credit. Field heals, hull heals.
Yes, very true.
As soon as you start moving, they're on par with quite a few of the other reputation gear, the space gear as well.
Yes.
Yes, very true.
On a personal note, because like I said, I use this build myself.
Mm.
Before using this build, I died like at least once every ISA that I did a solo. After switching over, I haven't died once.
Oh,
Awesome.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. It doesn't have a lot of defensive capabilities, but it's got
really
enough. Yeah. But it's got enough in the right spots, if you know what I'm saying,
Yes. And one of the defensive things that I notice in your device slot is the reactive armor catalysts.
Yes,
So that's a
that
nice
is.
little battery.
Yeah, no, that's a definite go-to. I don't have a single build without that on. Really, in case of emergencies, there's hardly anything that beats that.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
nice little heal, temporary hit points. It's
Yep.
the whole
Yep.
package.
Absolutely.
And then it looks like you have the energy weapon amplifier as well.
Um,
Or is that
you're talking about the
exotic
science
particle flood?
consoles.
No, the other battery in the device slot.
Oh, what have I got there? Hold on a sec.
Hard to tell because the number 4 is
Oh
blocking.
yes, my apologies. Yeah, no, it's definitely it's the energy amplifier. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that gives a nice boost for those of you that don't know to the beam weapons every time you hit it for 30 seconds with a minute-long cooldown. And then we have...
Yeah, also fantastic battery to have.
Yes, it is. And they're very
All
cheap to
craftable.
make. Yep, they're all
Yeah,
craftable.
very craftable.
Very cheap to make. In fact, if I pull up my game and show, they use to craft the where is it? There we go. They use a lot of the green crafting mats, 8 verteron particles, and 4 of the trionium gas. Things are things that tend to breed like bunny rabbits.
Yes,
So-
in the SGF.
Yeah, they tend to breed like bunny rabbits in your inventory, so you shouldn't have a real shortage of these to be able to craft them on your own.
Agreed.
Yep, we love those things. And then we have, of course, your engineering consoles. And this is pretty standard bioneural infusion circuits that increases the critical severity. And
Yeah.
then the timeline stabilizer for firing cycle haste.
Yep. And the reductions as well.
Yep. Yes.
Great for captain abilities, particularly.
Yes. And then, of course, the plasmonic leech to help with your power level.
Gotta have it.
Yep. And then the science consoles. So there's something a little different about your science consoles than the normal meta of Drain X. Did you want to talk about that?
Again, I'll be frank, I've got almost identical scores using either Drain X or EPG. You know,
Okay.
the information I've read says EPG is better. I don't know enough maths to be able to prove that or disprove it, but you know, like the way it works with the tractor beam repulsors and Gregomal and feedback pulse, those are basically the sciencey skills that I'm using, and both of those benefit greatly from EPG. So yeah, that's kind of where I went, and it's particularly for those Kazon spawns. You know, they work really well if you can generate or get them all firing at you enough by using a couple of your science skills.
Yeah.
Your feedback pulse is really going to work quite well there.
Definitely. Those Kazons can be quite nasty sometimes.
Yeah. They're resistant to a lot of things, so and try and get them as close as I can to my ship in order to do as much damage. So I've got a bit of tankiness built into this one as well now.
Okay. And then, of course, the 5 vulnerability locators that match your weapon type.
Absolutely.
That's very important.
Yeah. I must say, a lot of the newer builds, you know, you're seeing these ships flying out there with two tech consoles, 1 tech console. I still love 5. I can't get away from it.
Definitely understandable.
Yeah, as much power as possible. I think that's how I was brought up on the game, and I just can't get away from it.
Definitely understandable. I know that there are certain niche builds, like science
Yeah.
builds, for example, and a couple others, where
Hmm.
you start to where it becomes beneficial to start to replace your tactical consoles with something that boosts CPG or boosts exotic damage and things like that. But
Yeah.
for the most part, I'm the same as you. I use my vulnerability locators and I find I get the best results like that.
Yeah, let the beams do the work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright.
I have an engineer who thinks he's a science captain. I don't have a single tac console on him. It's all universals.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Yeah, I still do 80k and I say with him.
Yep. There you go. It
Mind you,
worked.
that's only with Mark 12.
Of course, with Mark 12. So when you get up to 14, you'll be doing quite a bit.
Quite a bit. Yeah.
Alright. So let's take a look at this skill tree here. This is very interesting. I can see at first glance you went with the tack ultimate. Any particular reason for that?
Not really. It's personal preference. Again, I've tried with a full science ultimate, almost identical build, just with the science ultimate, almost identical score in DPSM as well.
Okay.
Yeah, once you start going for the ultimates, you have to sacrifice by taking things that you probably wouldn't have taken in order to get the ultimates. And because of the way I fly, they almost cancel each other out. So
Okay.
yeah, I've managed to go for almost a full tack ultimate.
Beard
I
timed
think
out
I've
from
got the
teacher's
best
corner.
bits from the science section, and then I've filled out what I thought I needed in the engineering bit there, and made up the rest with the engineering with consoles and traits.
Okay. And as
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
see, so I'm forwarding through a little bit.
How
On
dare
the,
you go against the meta, sir, and try something new?
Uh,
Shame on you.
Throw him in
Yeah,
the brig.
I must say, but like also, I mean, I get a lot of information from reading other websites and so on, and there's some channels that they've given me excellent advice, and they've never moved away from certain things. And I sort of work on cloud information, so I mean, regardless of the changes, if they stick to a certain principle, they know the game better than I do, and I'm happy to sort of go with that. And that's kind of why I've moved back towards the TAC, as opposed to the science
Beard
one.
joined teacher's corner.
Even though when you listen to people talk, they're all like, yeah, the science is meta, but I don't really feel it when I'm flying, if that makes any sense.
Okay. No, it does, and what it all comes down to in the end is playstyle, and you're going to be the most comfortable with something that suits the way you fly.
Yes, yeah. Every time like I've increased in DPS or score, it's always been in increments of like 20 to 30k, and not because I've slapped on a new console or I've got some fancy beam, but because I've learned something about the way the game is supposed to be played. That if I just do this one thing, like and I add it to my routine, that alone gives me the increase in DPS. Things like Alpha Loves Dem, that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah. It was never consoles or a new beam or anything like that. It was always the understanding of how that stuff works together. That was the increase.
Yes, very interesting. And then you're running Intel and Strategist as your Intel as your primary, with Strategist as your secondary.
Yeah. I have changed that now, but
Okay.
yeah, Intel and Strat still viable because of all the because you get the clicky from Intel, and you get the you get all the time bonuses and the feedbackness what you get from the strategist as well. But I must say the new Temple Operative skills tree with that continuity. Now that I've kind of figured out
I
how to
know.
use that, wow, that makes such a difference.
It
Really
does,
does.
yeah.
Yeah.
It does, especially if you're in threatening stance and you don't have that 8-kilometer move.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it can be.
Yeah, and
That
if you
can be
can
very
sort of,
useful.
you can get your first GDF somewhere between sort of like 50% and 25%, then your GDF rolls around, I don't know how long, it's very quickly, again, it's almost immediately available. And that alone makes up for the loss of your clicky that you get from the Intel strategist,
Yes.
the Intel specialization tree.
Very true. And for those viewers that don't know what GDF mean, that refers to the tactical skill called go down fighting that tactical captains get. So the lower your hull gets, you hit your go down fighting and it gives you a large damage boost. The lower the better.
And the lower your hull, the lower the better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Really, you've got to learn how to do that. That'll
Yes.
increase your score tremendously.
Yes, it will. And it is very important. So now you're running temporal operative with strategist. So since this has
Yeah.
been made, there's been that slight change.
Yeah, I know, you've
Okay.
got to keep evolving just to
Yep.
keep up with
Yep,
everyone.
you do.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right, so we're on to personal trait. So this was, looks like you've got positive feedback loop, particle manipulator, inspirational leader. I can't make out the next one. It is a little blurry, but self-modulating fire.
Ablative shell.
Okay, was it? Okay. Yeah, it's a little blurry on my screen. And then Romulan operative, beam barrage. What was that? Fluidic cocoon and intense focus. Okay, very nice. Definitely not a budget build. Is
No.
it bad that I'm
Oh.
trying to use the bar to scroll it down?
Maybe.
I do that to YouTube videos all the time.
I know, right? Always trying to change the camera angle. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a budget build. There's a lot of very expensive traits
Yeah.
there. Probably do without a couple of them. Now that I know what I know,
Yeah.
you could probably lose a couple of those and just use the free traits and still get roughly the same sort of score. I think the
Very
only one there that I mean, inspirational leader. Nothing's standard anymore. I mean, I've seen builds
I
without
know, right?
inspirational leader. Yeah, where do you go? I mean, the self-modulating fire, that one I keep because I've seen that almost on everything. Positive loop
Yeah.
feedback and the EP one there, beam barrage. But the rest, they're all up for grabs. Maybe ablative shell isn't even really a standard. You could use one of those free traits, techie or something like that. So there's ways to get around the expensiveness, but yeah.
A lot of these traits are really cheap now. I'm sorry. Just
They are.
what they used to be before the Infinity Lockbox and what they are now.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, isn't it? Eh?
Yes, the exchange bubble has popped. But yeah, so ablative shell I would say is pretty standard for ships that don't have a lot of other defensive things. Because it is a very good heal.
Fantastic, yeah.
And it's
I also use
passive.
biotech patch every now and again.
Oh yeah. That's always a good one too. That increases the effectiveness of your heal.
Yeah, because on this build it doesn't have a lot of. I don't think I've got all 3 points in hull regen. I think I've only got 1 or 2. So you need something to help you out there as well.
Yeah, exactly. All right, and then of course for your Starship traits, you've got emergency weapon cycle, pretty standard. All hands on deck, supremacy, invincible, and the last one again is a bit blurry for me.
That is the feedback pulse trait you get from the side ship from the event.
Improved feedback pulse.
Yeah.
So yes, very much fairly standard. Again, not
nothing out of the ordinary
cheap.
there.
Yeah, but again, not cheap.
No, again, you've got to get a bunch of ships for those.
Yep.
But all hands on deck. Wow. I mean, if you're going for numbers, you need that one for sure. Emergency weapon cycle. The rest, I don't even know. Supremacy, I can take it or leave it. I don't have anything better than that, so I take it. But it's interchangeable. But invincible, whew, goodness gracious, that is my favorite.
Yeah, it's definitely a good thing because it gives you an 8-second window to keep yourself from dying. Once you hit 0 hull.
Yes, and it's amazing how often you need that 8 seconds.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you get taken by surprise. Something one hits you, and that happens to me on science tunes all the time. But like at least on this one, when invincible, at least it gives you like oh goodness, I should be dead. Let me click an engineering skill.
Yeah. Exactly. Or if you're a Romulan, quick, let me click the quantum absorption so that I can give myself some temporary hit points and then hit an engineering skill so that I don't lose them on my hull. Yeah. Some good strategies there. And then, of course, your space reputation looks like you're going fairly standard, I see precision, which gives the 4% critical chance. I see advanced targeting systems, which gives 16% crit severity. I see the Nukara auxiliary configuration, offensive, the tier 4
Offensive one,
Nukara
yeah.
trait. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I see, oh, is that energy refrequencer there?
It is.
Awesome. And then enhanced armor pen, yes?
Yeah, for the 5%.
For the 5%. Okay. Pretty standard. Energy
Nothing special
refrequencer.
there.
Yeah, energy refrequencer, of course, gives a heal based on the amount of energy damage you're putting out. So, which is, of course, with the amount of energy he's putting out, gonna be really, really nice.
Substantial. Yeah, it should be
Yes.
substantial.
Alright, and then... Alright, so I did want to take a bit of a look at the parse. I did pull it up. So your record run was 152k. All by
was.
yourself.
Correct,
That's
yes, it was.
nice number. And it is still the record.
Yes, yeah. Somebody asked me if it was possible to get 200. I said, well, somebody's got to be the first. We've got to try.
Yep, exactly. So, as we expect, your fire at will is your highest damage, with quite a number of attacks. Then your anti-proton unbuffed raise. So you'll see this. This is when it's in fire at will, and the second one is when it's not in fire at will. And you can see that's about a 3-to-1 ratio. You have about 3 times more attacks with fire at will.
Yeah, 3-to-1. Yeah.
Which is very nice. And then, of course, the plasma explosions, which we would expect. Small amount of attacks, large amount of DPS there. It's pretty good. 17k is not bad with those. Now the directed energy, the directed energy modulation, that interests me because I've never seen a number of good results with that. You got 246 attacks. Why don't we talk about that for a sec?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to, but I couldn't tell you how I got so many, to be honest.
Well, what is your strategy for using DEM? Like, do you fire it off at a special time, or?
Well, I always fire DEM and Alpha, like my Alpha attack pattern. If you're running like the timeline stabilizer, they almost time exactly the same, and those two skills absolutely love each other. So I always fire Alpha and DEM at the same time.
Paladin Leland entered your channel. JFK room on the server.
I don't have a particular target, so like I'll fire it against anything that's in range. Borg, Kazon, whatever happens to be around me at the time. But Alpha and DEM always together. They love each other.
Interesting. Well, it's definitely working. And then, of course, we have the feedback pulse against the Borg. Gave you about 4k DPS. And then the Chemosite, pretty standard, great debuff. And then, you got a pretty good amount of attacks with your refracting Tetrion Cascade.
Yeah, that's, if I'm using tractor beam repulsors and Gregor, everything gets sucked pretty close to you, and as soon as they're within like a kilometer, hit your refracting Tetrion Cascade for maximum damage.
Definitely. And then, of course, feedback pulse again with the Kazon for the phaser.
Yeah.
And then subspace vortex 2. Let me guess, you use that against the cubes?
Yes, I do.
Because they don't move.
No, they don't move. I usually pop a subspace vortex right at the beginning at the very first cube. And then pretty much on the last set. I don't remember using it in the middle at all.
Okay. Yeah, it says you got 8 attacks out of them, so it pulsed quite a bit. And then, of course, the counteroffensive from the strategist tree, both plasma and phaser. So that was pretty good.
Yeah. Obviously, something that doesn't show there is I use like assignment buffs as well.
Okay.
I say like the Romulan, it's different from tune to tune. Something I've just noticed is like if I use my Romulan tune, You get assignment buffs very regularly, and it takes a while to build up a couple of them so you can use them all at once. But on my freed Borg Federation science guy, goodness gracious, I mean, those buffs roll around all day, every day, and you end up with like 10 or 11 ready to rock and roll by the end of the week. But they are significant. They're also significant. They can add a serious amount of DPS to your score, and it doesn't reflect obviously on the combat logger.
Yes, that's right. It doesn't. And those assignment buffs come from your doffing. Which ones do you recommend there, by the way, Jack?
Well, they all come from you can only get the assignment buffs from the personal tab. If you critical success those, then you get a chance to get assignment buffs. They'll come up in green as to which ones you're going to get, but the one that adds the most amount of DPS is an assignment buff that increases your long range. It's that science skill tree thing. It's the long range
targeting sensors.
Targeting, yeah.
Okay.
That one's pretty good. Anything that affects your attack patterns or weapons proficiency, that sort of thing, those are excellent. And then all your sort of services like your engineering and side things as a secondary.
Okay.
But they're random. You never know really what you're going to get. It's just
exactly.
Yeah.
So keep an eye out for those, especially the one that affects your long-range targeting scanners. It'll probably say something like recalibrate.
I wish I could remember
rightly.
what the...
I don't remember exactly, yeah.
I can't remember exactly,
It's been a good while. Alright, so I'm looking at this, and one of the things that stands out to me in this parse is the flanking damage. Have you looked at this? You've got like 46% flanking damage with your fire at will, 66 with your regular beam arrays, 23% with your plasma explosions, 50% with dem. And it kind of goes on from there, but that's a good amount of flanking damage.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think where I position myself. I don't stand still, I circle. I think I'm usually in the middle of the K-zones when I'm circling.
Okay.
So I can only imagine that's how I'm getting that sort of flanking thing. I assume that's what their flanking side must be on, because I'm never on the outside of the circles. I'm always in the middle, doing a circle myself, basically, yeah.
Interesting. And that flanking, of course, came from the intel tree.
Tree, yeah.
Right, so if you're running temporal as your primary, you won't see flanking damage on your part. So something important to note there.
Yes, definitely.
But yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
It's great when you analyze a pass to see...
Isn't it?
Wow.
You see things and you're like, oh, I didn't think about that.
Didn't think about that, yeah.
Yeah. It was one of the things that kind of stuck out to me when I was looking at it.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then, of course, you got some really good crits, too. Some of this is, of course, because you're Romulan and using SROs.
Yes, sure. So I've got already got a pretty high crit, crit hit rate and a crit severity rate before any of the buffs or any of your buffs are doing anything already. So
yeah.
Yes.
Dirty Romulan.
Yeah.
Yep, he's a dirty Romulan.
Dirty Romulan, yeah.
I did have one question.
Yeah.
Why are you using the tractor beam officer on that build? I'm looking at your stations and you're not running a tractor beam skill.
Yeah, that's a mistake.
Yeah,
I switch out between the subspace vortex and the tractor beam repulsors, and occasionally I forget to change out the DOF. So yeah, obviously if you're running a Gregamel, you want to be running TBR. But if you're not running TBR, drop him and replace him with either a feedback guy or a crit severity guy. There's literally 5 or 6 or 7 different options you can put in there.
Yeah.
Another batteries guy. There's plenty of DOFs for that position.
Yep, very much. And so let's get on to your bridge officer layout. So you've got, looks actually
Pretty standard.
pretty standard from what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got attack pattern beta 3, 2 copies of fire at will, which one would expect. Chemosite, and then on your other tac station you've got tac team, and then you're using override subsystem safeties, which of course brings the power levels up, allowing you to increase your weapons damage. And then of course emergency power to weapons 3, directed energy modulation, which we saw did a good amount for you. Looks like engineering team 1, and then another emergency power to weapons 1. And then
Yes.
science. The only thing
Message
I noticed that's
received.
not standard
Ain't
is
disconnected
the
from your channel. Utopia Planitia from Teacher's Corner.
polarized hull. I'm surprised. I would have expected that to be hazard emitters.
Yes.
But that's just preference, I think.
Yeah, no, that's
Go
just preference. I also, again, I really don't have the maths to back this up, but if I put polarized hull on instead of hazard emitters and I pop polarized hull, I seem to pull more threat than if I'm running hazard emitters. Now, I
That's
was talking to Ed
interesting.
about that. Yeah, I was talking to Ed about that, and it was just the fact that I was popping a science skill, and every time you pop a science skill, you generate X amount of threat naturally just by clicking it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that works with hazard emitters, but it definitely registers when you're using polarized hull.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And also the Kazons slow you down and they stop you from turning. You've got the tractor beams from those Borg guys as well.
Oh, and
it's
polarized hull will negate that, yeah.
really, yeah. Particularly for that second set of Borg cubes. The one that you kind of head into just after the first set.
Yep.
To get trapped in the middle of all 4 of those with 4 tractor beams, you need something to get you out of there.
Yeah, definitely. And then of course feedback pulse 2 and subspace vortex.
Pulse 2.
Yep.
Yeah. Although, like I say, we can swap that around for tractor beam repulsors and feedback pulse. I've also done subspace vortex and grav wells. I've really messed around with this build to try and see what works, and it all works to a certain degree. I can get pretty much the same score with most of those things, aiming at the right targets.
And then of course we have the duty officers. Looks like you've got a couple con officers to reduce the cooldown on your tac team. Looks like you've got a ZMOC. Is that yeah?
For beta.
For attack pattern beta. And then energy weapons officer. Is that the stacking crit? It's hard to read. It's a little blurry.
Crit severity.
Okay. To stack the crit severity, and that's a blue one.
Yeah.
And then
because the pink ones are crazy prices.
Yes. Yep. And then it looks like, what is this? Some kind of engineer? Having trouble reading it. It's a little.
Yeah. It's probably the battery engineer. So I'm just going there myself.
Might be maintenance engineer.
I know it's Femina. She's Femine.
Oh.
The same as the Marion. Yeah.
Oh, okay, for Dem.
Yeah.
Okay, so that reduces the power drain
from
firing weapons. Very nice. Very helpful when you're...
very...
Yeah.
Fighting the Borgs.
Yep, exactly. Alright, and that pretty much covers your build. Looks like it's going to be a short episode today unless Steve has any more questions. Because Ain unfortunately had to leave us.
Yep. He's already running the build, so he doesn't have any questions.
So Ain doesn't have any questions, of course. But yeah, any strategy tips you can think of there, Jack?
Well, for DPSM?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the video is self-explanatory. I urge anyone who's really looking to get over 100 to have a look at that. The first section of the DPSM, I would say, is like the most important. Not flying straight in at the first mob, going around to the side, coming back at it a little bit so you've got the second mob in range before you finished firing your first fire at will. It's probably the most important aspect of that run. Once you've got that out of the way, everything else pretty much rolls in sequence. Your fire at will rolls around smack bang in the middle of the first set of Kazons. By the time that's gone, your next fire at will is up and ready to roll for the second set of Kazons. So it all runs pretty much like clockwork, as long as you can get that first section done fast and get it out the way quickly. That would be my sort of helpful hint for DPSM. As far as builds go, don't get too hung up on your skills trees and your beams. If you've got epic weapons and you've got those good traits, that's all you need. You've got the weapons and the information you need. Now you just need to put it into action.
Very nice.
That's it. Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been Utopia Planitia with special guest Captain Jack. Say goodbye, folks.
Thank you very much for having me.
It was a pleasure.
Goodbye, folks.
Goodbye, folks.
We miss you, Ed.
See you, Ed.